morning, everyone, and welcome to the Public Safety Committee meeting. Today we do have two topics, both are intertwined on the FY23 operating budget. The first one is the police budget in general, and then the Police Accountability Board, NDA, is after that. As we begin, I'd like to thank once again Ms. Farag for doing this packet for us, and Ms. Farag and Ms. Wellens for doing the second package for us. As always, they've done a marvelous job. I'd like to welcome Chief Marcus Jones from the Montgomery County Police Department and Assistant Chief Carmen Faciello from the Community Resource Bureau, Assistant Chief Darren Frank from the Management Services Bureau, Assistant Chief Willie Parker Lone from Patrol Services Bureau, Assistant Chief Dinesh Patel from the Investigative Services Bureau, Assistant Chief Mark Yamada from the Field Services Bureau, and Taman Morris of the Office of Management and Budget. As we begin this, and I'm going to ask my colleagues if they have anything to say, but I do think it needs to be pointed out once again that the budget summary that Ms. Farag has prepared for us on this topic says the department, there's three items. The department remains critically understaffed. If left unaddressed, it may eventually impact service delivery. The second says the department has had more than 20 police reform mandates placed on it. The county mandates are staffed and funded. And the third item is the budget adds 24 positions, all but 3 of which are civilian. Recruiting and retention challenges remain. And we all are very aware of that. We're all very concerned about that. And we will go, as we go through this budget. I'm going to ask my colleagues if they have any opening remarks. Before I turn to Ms. Farag, Chief, do you have any opening remarks? No? Thank you very much. And with that, Ms. Farag, you get to go to work. Thank you. Yeah, not to say that you haven't before. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. As Chairman Katz mentioned, the staffing for recommended FY23, they're currently critically understaffed, and there's $296 million recommended for the FY23 budget. That's an increase of about 4.5%. I've broken down in 2 charts on page 2 what those net increases are coming from. The middle chart is added services. So they're spending about $2.3 million to provide service enhancements to the community. The second chart is same service adjustments. That means this is what's needed to fund the department as it is today. That's almost $10.5 million. You'll see of that, $13 million of it is FY23 compensation adjustments. Most of that is the proposed FOB collective bargaining salary increase, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So I just wanted to kind of set context here. What does this budget mean? Following 2 years of very significant change on the department, COVID hit, and that had immediate impacts on community behavior and policing. And then after George Floyd's murder in 2020, governments at every level quickly engaged in various different types of reform initiatives, and some of those have proved successful. Some of them continue to be challenging. There is a complex framework of state and local laws that govern more than 18,000 police departments across the nation. To complicate those changes, many of the initial reform proposals increase alternative governmental response capacity. They want to provide a non-police service response for things like community mental health crises. Those too are facing implementation barriers, often due to existing staff shortages in their own fields and hiring challenges across many needed professions. Add to this type of pressure coming from police reform itself, it's against the backdrop of having the critically understaffed department that we discussed. We've had police staffing updates for several years that show there is a national shortage of police, and that has impacted the department as well. And attrition has gone from 1 non-retirement loss every month up to 4. They've got a large number of people who are scheduled to retire this year as well. And add to that, with short staff, police reform change, even if it's good change, it's stressful change. Add to that, this is against the backdrop of having an increase of violence in the community. All crime, total crime has gone down, but violence as a subset has increased. In 2021, homicides were up 88%, carjackings were up 72%, contact shootings increased by 66%. That's when somebody's shot but does not die. And of course, there was the unprecedented number of firearms sold since COVID hit, and often more guns means more violence in the community. The number of recovered privately manufactured firearms or ghost guns increased. They recovered 72 in 2021. They've already recovered 82. That was when I wrote this staff report. And so we've already outpaced the entirety of last year. And unfortunately, other firearm-related violent crime rates don't seem to be slowing for FY22. Again, when I wrote this staff report, there had been 11 homicides in the county. Unfortunately, there was another one last Friday night. There was also one in Tacoma Park, but that one doesn't count toward the county overall totals. And to put this in further,
Can we, on that one, are you saying because the murder did not occur in Montgomery County, or we are not including Tacoma Park's statistics in the county statistics?
we don't include Tacoma Park statistics as part of our crime stats to my knowledge, but I don't know why.
Chief?
No, they report out to the state, and we don't capture anything there. We do assist them with slightly assist them at times with major crimes and with other resources like SWAT, but they report all their own.
Well, if I could suggest, and if something occurred in Montgomery County, then we should say, we should have an asterisk next to it, and so that we have a total of what is occurring in Montgomery County. And I appreciate what you're saying. I understand Tacoma Park is, years ago was set up as, because it used to be partially Prince George's County and partially Montgomery County, and in order for them to come into Montgomery County, there was all, these agreements. But I do think that would be a fair statistic.
Yeah, and I would just add that we don't add their statistical crime data to ours because they have a separate reporting mechanism. So therefore, we don't know sort of their numbers, and they do report directly to the state. So I agree with you. I think it needs to be an asterisk that it denotes Tacoma Park is not inclusive into our crime stats.
Thank you.
Does that mean we don't? Out of practice, does that mean we don't include Rockville and Gaithersburg, or you said Tacoma Park is unique because of the unification issue?
Yeah, all of Tacoma Park and Gaithersburg are under our reporting systems.
Rockville and Gaithersburg.
Rockville and Gaithersburg, right. So they're under our reporting systems, and so we do include them.
Shouldn't we just change this to include Tacoma Park permanently? They've been in Montgomery County for 20 years.
Well, yeah, but that they have decided that that's they want to do their own self-reporting. Like they have their own dispatch center, so therefore they have their own CAD system, statistics of calls for service and the like. I don't see those numbers, so yes.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so just FYI, yes.
Very good. Thank you.
So I just wanted to point out that this increasing violence, unfortunately, is having a disproportionate impact on communities of color. And I've provided some charts on page 4 that overlays different types of violent crime on the county's equity focus areas, and those are on page 4. As you can see, that type of crime, the violent crime in particular, is concentrated in the equity emphasis areas, which I will get to later. The importance of that I'll get to later. So there have been a lot of local reform efforts, both at the state and the local level. I'm going to separate this staff report into 3 different areas. One will deal with reform mandates, one will deal with staffing, and one will deal with operational issues. As we know, both the General Assembly and the county have engaged in different levels of police reform, and I've listed those mandates on page 6. The 2021 Maryland General Assembly mandates are at the top. They provided some last-minute changes to some of that during 2022, and there are some additional bills that will impact public safety delivery, also listed on page 6. And of course, the council's passed following bills that are listed on page 6. That's just since police reform really got up and running, because there were a couple of different council bills, I believe the Policing Advisory Commission and the Law Enforcement Trust and Transparency Act, which did precede these. And there's also a list of some prioritized Task Force to Reimagine Public Safety recommendations on page 7. So what I initially looked for was the fiscal and staffing impact of police reform initiatives that the council has mandated. Of course, the General Assembly ones are almost never funded. There are always unfunded mandates. And for the county, you have 2 bills to look at that had estimated fiscal impacts. The first one is 1821. This bill was effective February 18th, and it provides that body-worn cameras need to be issued to all officers whenever an officer is on duty wearing a uniform or prominently displaying insignia that identifies him or her as a police officer. It requires random review of a statistically valid sample size of all body-worn camera recordings, and it requires certain reporting requirements. So initially, the fiscal impact statement that accompanied the bill was almost $1 million, and that was going to buy 600 body-worn cameras, the associated licenses, and an administrative specialist position to provide support. The FY23 operating budget has a different approach to funding and staffing this. It includes funding to cover 300 body-worn cameras instead of 600. The department's current policy is to have, each officer has 2 body-worn cameras in case one goes down, to make sure that they're always covered. This one would provide the body-worn camera availability to plainclothes officers who may be called to work in uniform or other instances where they're publicly identified as police officers. The department advises it's a more fiscally prudent approach to ensure compliance with the bill. But I'd like to recommend that the committee may wish to follow up with the department later this fall just to ensure that 300 cameras is sufficient to meet the operational needs here. It's also adding 2 sergeants to review the random body-worn cameras, and they will be assigned to the office of the chief.
Can I ask 1 second? How long, when we order body-worn cameras, how long does it take to get body-worn cameras? Does anybody?
How long?
How long does it, when we order body-worn cameras, how long does it actually take before we actually receive them?
Yeah, about a month.
Oh, so it's fairly fast. Okay, okay, very good. So please put a note that we would like to have an update, please.
And so for Bill 4520, that bill was enacted last year and it became effective this year in February. It broadens the reporting requirements of Bill 3319, and it requires demographic information regarding individuals stopped for a variety of reasons, searched, cited, arrested, or the subject of any use of force incident. And it also requires the department to post certain information on Data Montgomery, and that list is provided on page 8. Again, there was a fiscal impact statement provided for this. It stated that staff would take approximately 1,440 hours to build the 12 required data sets, and it would require 2 new positions as well as filling a vacant IT supervisor position. That fiscal estimate is listed on page 9, approximately $225,000. There are no additional positions added to this recommended budget to support the bill's requirements. Instead, the department indicated that it's taking, again, a more fiscally prudent approach and using current resources. They have a new technology director who's assessing and modifying the department's data and IT work processes to make them more efficient. They are also in the process of filling that vacant IT supervisor position, and they indicate additionally, if approved, which we'll discuss in a minute, 2 recommended administrative positions that assist with MPIA requests. They'll be able to assist with this work as needed. They advise that together these changes should meet the bill's requirements. And if the department identifies a need for additional resources later in the year, it may require a supplemental appropriation to ensure that proper staffing and resources are provided. Again, this is an item that I think the committee should follow up on in the fall.
Agreed.
Do you want questions as we go?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's do questions as we go, please.
Okay.
Councilmember Hawker.
Thank you. If that's the question, the practice, I'm going to just go back to body-worn cameras before we get too far away. Okay. Obviously, I'm supportive of the goal. And it was required by the bill we passed. But what surprised me is I remember at previous briefings, the standard we set up, going back to Chief Manger years ago, was 1 camera per officer, right? And I think that wasn't fully implemented at first, and then it came in stages. It just surprised me that we still need 600 more. And I'm also wondering not just how long it took to get them, but what's the useful life?
So first, all of our patrol officers have 2 cameras. Mm-hmm. We've been in that situation probably for the last 4 years at least. That once they go out, they do a full shift, their 10-hour workday. They bring the body-worn camera back in. They sit it in a charger. It uploads. They grab the other camera, which is fully charged and ready to go. So every officer at that point was provided with a body-worn camera. Now we believe that, again, in an assessment of the program and still looking at those, there have been those who have been that were in patrol who were issued 2 body-worn cameras. And then who went to other assignments. And so we've been able to pull those cameras back where they are not front-facing in a sense that they're not out in the public in their current job class. So therefore, we believe now that we might be able to supplement to give even the officers, the ones that we're asking for, the 300 cameras, that we'll be able to provide enough cameras to give them to. But, again, one of the things that I think is unique is these officers that we're now adding into the body-worn camera program, who are now plainclothes officers who will be self-identified as noted in the bill. Their needs are for the cameras, again, depending upon their assignment, may not be as the camera may not be utilized as much as the patrol officer, because their interactions are relatively few in its time nature. So therefore, we may have to really take a hard look at the assessment of them. But let's say, for example, one of the reasons why we think it's vitally important that officers have these cameras who were not initially signed, what we have found is that when there are major events that occur, let's say, for example, when we have a high terrorism alert, or there's a need for us to have additional resources, we will oftentimes pull in our detectives, we'll often pull in other plainclothes units to put them in uniform, to have them in these high visibility positions. And what they currently don't have is they don't have body-worn cameras. So this is to fulfill that need, and the officers are really do want them, when they know that they're going to be put in the county fair is another example, right? We often sometimes pull in these types of resources to help us with these types of events. So therefore, we think at this current time, if we get the 300 cameras, and again, looking back at the assessment of, the previous cameras that have been turned in, we think we still have enough to be able to distribute, and everyone would have 2 cameras. But we'll still be assessing that and be able to report back in the fall as well.
How long does one last?
So we have, Axon has changed their model, and they make all of their money now in the storage and the different functions. So the cameras themselves, we've entered into a contract with them on a leasing basis. It's much more favorable to us. It's probably one of the best contracts on the East Coast. So whenever the next one comes out, they replace them and cycles through. So there's not going to be you won't see the charge like we would see with our bulletproof vests when they all have to be replaced. We'll just continue the leasing cycle, the licenses, if you would.
How long does one last before they wear out?
What do you mean?
Each camera wears out at some point, right?
The battery life or lifespan?
Lifespan.
Whenever they update to their next model, for
Okay.
example,
Right.
when they roll out, and they plan that.
Yeah, okay. Just the
But
next
generally, we look at 5 years. That's kind of the model that Axon has. They have that with the tasers as well. But again, we're also going into a leasing model
Right.
with them.
No, I hear
So
you.
that at 5 years, every time a taser hits 5 years, it gets replaced.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, no, I was just surprised the number was that high, but that's great to know. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, I think, and going to the chief's point, between our new IMTD director assessing and going through and looking at our attrition as well, we do think this 300 will put us pretty close to 2 cameras for every officer. We're actually in the process right now of issuing out the single cameras to anyone that aren't in patrol services.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Is there another?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Thank you. And Ms. Frog, if you would please continue.
Thanks. For staffing on page 9, the department currently has an authorized sworn complement of 1281. Of these, 72 positions are currently vacant, and there's an attrition chart added on circle 13, so you can see what their projections are for the next several years. It also has 731 authorized civilian professional staff positions, and they have a significant vacancy right now, too, with 106 civilian positions vacant. The recommended budget is funding 2 recruit classes with a total of 47 recruits for the year.
Could we take and I know this is a terrible thing to guess, but any idea how close we can come to get the 47 recruits and for these classes?
So I'm gonna let Assistant Chief Frank speak to this because he oversees personnel, and I will say I think they've come up with a very robust approach to try to really upgrade our recruitment processes as well as to get a fair number of candidates into our next class. And there's some strategies that they're utilizing that we're not sort of staying with the norm. And because, and again, I've been talking to police chiefs all across the country. We are not the only agency going through this. There are police departments across the country. I was talking to Minneapolis, the chief yesterday. She has 500 shortages. She's down 500 officers. But that's the trend. That's the trend that a lot of departments are, 300, 400 officers in the hole. And we're headed that way. And so there's a lot of conversation about how do we sort of kind of right the ship in order to make this more attractive and to get, really good qualified candidates in the seats. But I think Chief Frank has a robust plan, and I'll allow him to share that now to show exactly what we are doing to try to get to that point.
So Captain Smith and myself, and actually the county's innovation team, we've all looked at our recruiting efforts. We've looked at how to recruit this next generation. We've looked at where we're getting the best return on our investment. We've made a lot of significant changes. I will say the good news so far with this cycle is that we've increased our candidates that have applied so far at this point in the game by about 220. So that is significant for us. The problem we continue to run into is people that self-select out of the system, or they have significant background issues, and I'm not talking about lack of work experience or bad grades in schools. I'm talking about arrests. I'm talking about very significant drug use. They get eliminated from the process. It's a different candidate pool. So we have done everything to open up our pipelines to include lowering the test score to 60%, which it was before. I personally took the test. I didn't like the test because I thought it had an opportunity to exclude some people, and we actually showed during 2 classes that there was disparate impact when we raised it to 70%. Our background investigators do a fantastic job at vetting people out, and if we want to keep the pipeline open because, again, it's a very limited pool from which we're pulling from. Going to your question on are we going to hit the 47, I don't believe so. So far, I've approved about 11 offers, and again, this next class is starting in August, and the cycle is coming closer to an end now. I think a more realistic goal is 30, but anywhere between 20 and 30. Now, obviously, that helps to increase our attrition issues, which again are quite significant. We appreciate all the effort that the county executive and that the council has put toward us for recruiting, but it is a very serious issue. By December of 2024, we expect to be over 225 officers short, which brings us down to approximately one officer per 10,000 residents. It's not ideal at all.
Far from it. Let me ask you, when you make an offer to the 11 or whatever that number, if they've also gone to air competition, the Howard counties, the Fairfaxes, the wherevers, and they're faster, and you're looking for a job, wouldn't they go to that organization faster? I mean, you're looking for a job. You get used to eating, so therefore you need a paycheck.
Correct, and that's another area of emphasis that we have taken time off of our recruiting process because we want to get out ahead. 2 of the major factors in this competition are agencies that can get the offer quicker, because unfortunately some of these young folks aren't getting the guidance they need to look at the entire package, because you can look at, really they look at bottom line dollars, which I will say with the recommended budget and the recommended raise to the FOP Lodge 35 puts us in the top tier again. This problem started 5-6 years ago with our starting pay issues. This recommended budget puts us on a fair playing field with them. So we have shortened the recruiting time, and when I say shortened, we've taken out, like, we would do physical testing on one day and we'd do the oral boards on another. We're collapsing all of those things so that we can immediately get people into background investigations. We're also looking at a more efficient background investigation, not less of one, but a more efficient one based on technology, based on resources that are out there, so that we can be first in line to get that offer, advertise what our starting salary is, and in addition to that, we have an early hire program, so that as soon as we give them that offer, we get them in the house right away so that they can start, if you would, a paid internship, which is also very effective for us.
Yeah, I was going to ask if we're doing something like that. I mean, it is to our benefit to make certain that the person that you know could be a good public safety first responder to be in Montgomery County. So,
right, and we have a ton to offer. I mean, when you talk about our comparative others, there, in some sense, when you look at how progressive our department is, when you look at the opportunities, I think we can win those battles now, because you can come here and you can make a career or whatever you want, because we have the size allows you to do that. So we've got a lot of things in place now that hopefully, you know, again, that 225 plus is a scary number. We've got a number of things that we're hoping will chip away at it. It's still coming, but we want to soften the blow.
very good. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So I have a lot of confidence in the strategies that we're utilizing, and I have a lot of confidence in you guys. You guys have been at the forefront of this, but obviously the recruitment issue is complicated, and we got to tackle it from multiple angles. And I'm going to use an awkward metaphor here, but I think it's sort of as relevant. So in college athletics right now, the transfer portal has really wreaked havoc on college athletics. And I know for a fact that we're losing officers who are trained here and then moved to other jurisdictions. So in a sense, there's sort of a transfer portal that's existed within law enforcement and the first responder field. So we have to make sure that our policies and our salary and compensation, all of that is ahead of the curve and keeps us competitive throughout the region. But beyond that, the issue of morale comes into play here too, because if the officers themselves don't feel supported, and obviously within any profession, there's conversations among the rank and file in respective offices. People run into each other in social gatherings, at faith-based events, at you name it. And if there's a general impression that our law enforcement, for whatever reason, isn't the place that it was at one time, that message permeates, and it's tough to, push back against that too. So in addition to salary and compensation and those things that are important but a little bit more straightforward, we have to think about recruitment and retention in our rhetoric, in how we talk about our police officers, in acknowledging really great work that's happening in the community, and sort of lift up and balance the conversation in a way that's reasonable and that ensures accountability and transparency in the highest degree of standards, as we've maintained for many years. But we have to think about that. So I did have a couple questions, because it's all sort of connected. I didn't know where quite to ask them. But Susan, thank you so much for providing the numbers, across the board. But do we have sort of a better breakdown within each police district of how many we're down? I know we're down more than, it's a couple of dozen in the 3rd district as an example, but do we have that breakdown? And it may already be in the packet and I may have missed it.
It's not in the packet. I have a list from last December. I don't have anything updated, and I can work with the department to get something that's updated. But vacancies also include not just the fact that you're down 72 sworn, but also people who are out on leave or light duty, that type of thing too. So those numbers of vacancies or your actual sworn force power might be less than what we're really looking at on paper. So.
It'd be helpful because, as we know, some districts are much more intense than others. And, it wouldn't be a huge surprise if some of those more intense districts had higher vacancy rates or transition rates than others. Can you confirm if that's the case?
I can absolutely confirm that. It's one of the things that I have been, I have requested that our commanders report out at their monthly at our crime stat meetings, that they provide me with their vacancies so we can have a visual and an understanding of the impact that these retention issues that we're having, and we look at retirements, we look at resignations. For example, I will tell you the 4th district is the highest number of vacancies. I think we're over 35 positions that are currently vacant. It has also required us as the senior command to look at really how do we view and what strategies do we come up with to address these shortages, because it impacts overtime, and sometimes it gets to the point that the officers might be burnt out and not want to work overtime. And in fact, we've seen where even when we've offered overtime at a certain district, we can search across the entire county and we find no one who's willing to stay over to assist, which puts us in another predicament because, of course, answering calls for service, 911 emergency calls are our priority. So therefore, sometimes that requires an involuntary stay over for some officers. But one of the strategies that I've utilized in the meantime, sort of putting a Band-Aid on this, is that we have now looked at our other bureaus, our detectives. For example, I'll just utilize detective units as an example. We sort of were in a tradition that whenever there were position vacancies, we would automatically fill them. Well, we have always found that the majority of the people that are selected for those positions, not always a guarantee, but generally the majority of those people come from patrol. They've been groomed, they've been prepared, they've been preparing themselves to reach their career goal. And so they will apply for those positions. Well, once they are removed from patrol and transferred over, there's nobody in the waiting to go to patrol. Okay, because now you either had a retirement or a resignation that created that position of vacancy. So with that being said, so what I've said to the other bureau chiefs is that a position vacancy is not a guarantee that we will fill those slots. That unfortunately, that patrol has been the bureau that has suffered the most. And therefore, everybody's going to have to start feeling a little bit of pain. And we're doing our very best to really critically think about it. It's not, a guarantee that I won't feel it, because if it's mission critical, and I'll give an example if it's in my special victims unit, such as domestic violence or sexual assault unit, I am not, I think because those are extremely busy units and have a heavy workload, I'm not going to put an extra burden on those by keeping a position open. We will fill those positions. But there are some units that, that I look at and I'm like, well, we may have to do without for some time until we make some adjustments accordingly. And as we are, again, trying to maintain the service levels for all of our citizens to the very best of our ability, so that we're not eliminating, investigation, follow-up, and things of that nature. But we do have to understand that, this is impacting the entire department. So we have to really think differently also about even what positions that, that we have people in a support role. But the question will be asked, is this a position maybe at some point that we civilianize and that we utilize and take a sworn officer and take that position and put it back in patrol or another unit? That's again, those are the types of conversations that we're having.
I appreciate that. That's helpful. And that you sort of previewed my next question. The reduction in patrol officers that's presented in the budget, that explains some of it, just sort of the challenges and trying to fill the needs that are out there. But I would love, as a follow-up, Mr. Chairman, if we could get that information, Susan, on how we break down by district. And that probably requires a different set of strategies in our recruitment within those respective districts too, acknowledging they're all very different from each other.
Yeah, so, and it goes to one thing that has been, from a visionary standpoint, from my perspective in strategic planning, one of the things I've been working with our staff on is looking at redeployment strategies so that we can really look at our workload and do a workload analysis and see how we can sort of shift some of those resources. And we have not done this in quite some time. Of course, we've been bogged down the last couple of years of doing a lot of other things, but this is something that I think is vitally important for this department moving forward, that we have a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. Looking at, again, looking at to talk about whether redistricting, moving district lines, moving maybe even another district station, which again is something you all have heard me speak about before, that I'm fully, I think that this is where we have to go in order to provide the best service possible to our community. So we are actively engaged in that right now in those discussions. Not only that, but we're gathering the data in order to look at the calls for service and looking at the district lines which we currently have, and how can we redeploy some of our resources to some of those more crucial locations in the county that we're having crime issues with, larger calls for service, and better service delivery. All of those things are vitally important in how we go about making sure that we have folks in the right places at the right time that can respond quickly.
Thank you. And then just final point, I know that things like the homeowner's tax credit, which we move forward, and my understanding is that we can move forward with that without having to require the legislation, which is good news. But other potential recruitment options or things that might be attractive that separate us from other departments, we're obviously very open to. And that could mean, I think we've evolved nicely in our conversations with Montgomery College, although that got off to a rocky start, but now I think we've arrived at a really great place. There's an opportunity for us to think proactively and recruit within the universities of Shady Grove or Montgomery College, or even beginning to identify people interested in a criminal justice career as early as high school. So taking that long view, that 3 to 5 year strategic plan, I think is going to be important.
Yeah, and I noted, I think that Susan can speak to this. I know Councilmember Glass added a memo in regards to the Cadet program, which I am, I fully support this because I think it's a great start for our young people, particularly to really focus on homegrown talent. And it is clear that we have to start at the high school, at least from a recruiting process, right, to really highlight that this program is out there for them as they're making critical decisions about career goals and educational goals as they move forward. And I think it will be helpful. And again, part of us working within the school system gives us the ability to be able to have those conversations and to be able to sort of market ourselves to the Montgomery County Public School system and beyond, that we would be able to say to them that this is an opportunity for you. If you go to college, you can still work for us part-time in this cadet program while you're earning college credits, and maybe working with Montgomery College and some others with scholarship programs and opportunities. But that would be a great start. And I think the success of what we have had recently over the course of the cadet program highlights the fact that we've had success in hiring women as well as minority candidates that at a higher level than just through our normal recruitment process.
And my final just thought, I'll sort of start end where I started, just another sort of college metaphor, but just getting through the door is hard enough, but keeping somebody there is also important so that they don't drop out of the profession, get burned out before they even really get started. So recruitment also includes ensuring a strong mentorship program within the force, particularly in those first 2 years when I'm sure the job is overwhelming and you're trying to get your bearings straight. And we've already seen some folks leave from this most recent cadet class. So that, I think, is another important component to just recruitment, is just the retention component.
And thank you, Councilmember, one of the things that we do have is a very strong early hire program. So we bring them in on the weekends, and even before we make them an offer, we give them physical fitness training, we give them life training, we give them mentorship on what it's like to be a police officer, try and prep them before they even get to the academy. And then we are working on building out that mentorship even before. Usually with us, you get that opportunity with our field training program. You have a great, your field training officer, your primary becomes kind of your mentor, where you latch onto someone in the department. But there's certainly more. I will say that, again, it's eye-opening for this new generation when they get out and they get into these situations and the people they're dealing with. And the fact that, which we all recognize, it's a very good job market. There's lots of opportunities out there, especially with teleworking, and we're battling all kinds of things to get people to want to come and serve. But we'll get there. But that we are going to look at more of the mentoring and the retention aspect of it after we get them through FTO.
Right.
And if I could also add, well, I think one of my major concerns, and it's something I want the mentoring part of this to be included, is transitional living here in Montgomery County, where we recruit some recruits that come from other areas of the country, and when they get here, they're kind of surprised about how high the cost of living is, how high it is for housing, as an example, and then what are their options, right? And so I think we have to help guide them and work with them in order to provide a best case scenario. I'll give a case in point. I think we had one recruit who came from Queen Anne's County. Unbeknownst to me, this young man was actually commuting from Queen Anne's every day to work here. So again, coming across the bridge and for 4 days out of the week, I think it got probably a little bit overwhelming going to and from, and again, helping people to understand realistic goals, right? As they if they are transitioning from an area far away, and hopefully that we could get them to move into the county would be ideal. But I think we have to help them with this because, again, I think some people just see that they believe it's going to be this, and then when they get here, it's that. And so we have to address that.
Very good. Thank you. Susan, if you could continue, please.
Sure. I was just talking about staff shortages and some of the impacts that it has on the delivery of services. And Mr. Albonos and Chief Jones mentioned a lot of the different points already, but I did also want to point out that as discussed during the police staffing work session, staff shortages can also exacerbate community concerns about police encounters. Relying too much on officer overtime use, for example, is associated with increased community complaints. I'm also personally concerned about how the staff shortage impacts reform implementation. The staff shortages further tax the limited training and policy resources within the department, and it takes staff time to alter the policy and training rapidly and effectively. There are multiple pressures on the department as far as this is concerned, and one that concerns me is that the council passed a new use of force law a year and a half ago, and that was implemented, I believe, April 2021. But the state, under Senate Bill 71, has also implemented a use of force mandate that the department will also have to be trained on, right? How different is that? How confusing is that? How much of the police staffing and resources does it take to make sure that those uniformed officers are trained appropriately under the new state law as well? So I'm going to talk about staffing in more detail now. As I stated before, the recommended budget adds 24 new positions at the cost of about $1.4 million. 3 of these are sworn positions, and the first up are the public safety emergency communications specialists. The recommended budget is adding 15 civilian positions to return career firefighters to the field at the ECC. As you know, at the Emergency Communications Center, there are uniformed firefighter positions that currently provide fire dispatch services, and civilianization has been a goal since 2015 when the former executive made a decision to consolidate all ECC operations under the police department. And ideally, that staffing shift would free up about 7 uniformed firefighters by the end of FY24 to return to the field. Currently, Fire and Rescue has about 47 uniformed firefighters at the ECC, from an assistant chief down to a firefighter 2. and the executive advises that approximately 40 of the uniformed firefighters will be returned to the field once this ECC civilianization process is completed. The new civilian positions must be hired and trained before that can occur. And again, the effective or the start date of returning uniformed firefighters is in FY24. However, as you know, like other public safety positions, it's been very difficult to recruit and retain qualified telecommunicators at the ECC. There are currently 183 authorized positions at the ECC. 42 of those are vacant, and of those 42, 40 are telecommunicators. One's a training manager and one is a training instructor. I have concerns in general that the department will not be able to hire and fill the 12 added telecommunicator positions, given that it already has 42 vacancies. And just by way of background, the department has been exploring ways to improve recruitment and retention at the ECC as well. It's made several significant changes to the profession, including the adoption of a classification series that allows for promotion and pretty rapid promotion based on additional training. The department also has recognized the unique type of stress that telecommunicators face each day. They have to manage callers in crisis, and they often don't know how those calls are resolved. So to help address these work-related stress issues, the department has added a social worker on site in FY21 to enhance mental health and well-being support for employees, and they continue to look at additional ways to further that support. So one of the things I've been talking about with the department is how do you increase recruitment and retention so that you have a better chance of actually filling the 42 vacancies you have plus these 12 additional new ones. And anecdotally, the department has advised that many staff there have expressed an interest in a true retirement benefit. And that might be something that the committee wishes to explore further. The State Senate Bill 633 that just passed makes changes to both the classification of 911 telecommunicators and removes the cap on local 911 fees that local jurisdictions may charge in order to cover actual ECC operating costs. The bill also requires local jurisdictions to classify 911 telecommunicators as first responders and compensate them in a manner that reflects their public safety role and is commensurate with their training, knowledge, and skills that they possess. Well, the other first responders in the county get a real retirement benefit, right? So if this is something that the committee wishes to explore, they could delay hiring the 12 of these 15 positions for a year. For a savings of approximately $508,000, I have to modify that because it doesn't include operating costs, and ask the department to explore a 911 fee increase in an amount that would cover ECC operations and ideally create sufficient funding to implement a defined benefit retirement benefit. And I don't want to leave out the fact it is critically important to return those uniformed firefighters to the field. They have structural overtime issues. You're very well of their understaffing as well. But again, I don't think that that's really practical for this year as far as hiring 12 additional and filling those 42 vacancies as well. So I'm recommending that at this point, if the committee chooses, that it reduces the budget by those 12 positions in approximately $500,000 and look and see if there can be some funding sources accessed under the department.
Well, and thank you for the suggestion. First off, I think we should schedule a joint discussion with government operations on this as well. But I'm somebody that believes we should probably have parallel efforts rather than either or. I think we should explore. As we all know, it takes longer to hire somebody than it should. And in some cases, it's for good reason. You have background. You have to make certain that the person who's being hired is the person that should be being hired. But I think we should hire these positions and, in the same time, have the discussions about where we should be and how we should get there. I certainly believe that this is, as to Council President's point earlier, we need a variety of ways to attract people to do the jobs that save people's lives. So that's my suggestion as we do a parallel effort. I don't know where my colleagues are on that. You're good with that? You're good with that? I'm going to stop when both of them are good with that. We're going to say that they're in agreement. Okay. So good. Go ahead. Did you have something? No. Okay. Good. Everybody's, good. Take yes as an answer. That's what I've learned a long time ago. Okay. Go ahead, please.
So the next two ads are the two sergeants we've already discussed that will review the body-worn camera video footage for about $179,000. The next add is one police officer and one administrative specialist for $178,000. Both of those will be assigned to the recruitment division to help enhance outreach and recruitment efforts. And Chief Jones and Assistant Chief Frank touched on that briefly. The next add is 2 civilian staff for MPIA requests for about $168,000. Those 2 positions will assist with the very large number of MPIA requests that the department receives. Last summer, they were receiving about 100 requests a month, and those come from attorneys, the public, and the media. State Senate Bill 178 from 2021, which was effective last October, also modified the MPIA to no longer classify certain disciplinary records of police officers as a personnel record. And the effect of that is it turns that record from a mandatory denial to a discretionary denial. But that has also increased the number of requests received by the department. They're also adding 1 information technology specialist 2 for $80,000. That will assist with the timely footage and file redaction necessary for the MPIA requests. The department has long been understaffed in this function. It has 1 IT specialist 2 who does all the work. And I knew that this person was working a lot of overtime, but when I looked it up in Data Montgomery records, the incumbent was paid $133,000 in overtime in 2021 to perform this work. Wow. So it would be very helpful to understand if just 1 additional staff person is sufficient to handle this existing workload as they move forward.
Any idea on that, or?
So right now, we've got a contractor that's trying to help out. The full-time position is more beneficial because these contractors can come and go. We're looking at technology as a way to assist with this. I have an outstanding technology director. We've just identified a program that we're doing we just put in place that significantly reduces our redaction time. Unfortunately, you've heard of programs that Axon has, and they're not ready for prime time. She actually just identified one. We've put that into place. So between the position and between technology, what I'd like to say is that we'd like to circle back around and let you know how we're doing, because again, we're trying to be fiscally responsible and not create extra that we don't need.
And I appreciate that. Any idea what time frame we should circle back on? It's 3 months. What would be the time frame? 6 months? What gives a fair assessment?
I believe 6 months will be a fair assessment as we go through this, and certainly if we need to do it more. We still have the ability to continue to have contractors, but I really do. There's a need in the business community. The business community sees a need for us to be more efficient, so they're creating new things every day, and I think that gives us opportunities to maximize that aspect of it before we hire additional folks.
Thank you, Chief. You were.
I was, Mr. Chair, and one thing I do want to point out is just that the workload has immensely increased in the world of MPIA. So as the new Maryland law was put into place about officers, personnel, internal affairs records, that has incredibly increased our workload to about 600%. And so when you look at when individuals ask for multiple records of our officers, and some of those involving body-worn camera footage, it requires a lot of work in the redaction field. In fact, for one particular MPI request, we had over 300 requests. There were 300 files in one request. And so when you have to go through all of those files and then you actually have to redact, to go do the redaction process, it just shows you the amount of workload that is probably embedded upon just one individual. So it is no doubt that I think this is a major concern. It was a major concern for me even last year, as you see how much overtime that the one employee actually had, that who is incredibly good. He's an excellent employee, and he gets the work done. I mean, we've had, of course, as you all know, the incidents that we've had over the years and over the last couple of years, and we've released body-worn camera footage, but he is that person putting that together. So whether it's an MPIA request, whether it's for investigative purposes, such as the Maryland Attorney General's office, he's the person that they're relying on, or that section is. So that's why we think this is something that we're going to have to continuously monitor over time as we continuously get these different types of requests.
Thank you. Ms. Frog, if you could make a note, please, in 6 months.
Absolutely.
I think my colleagues agree with that. In 6 months, that we would have an update on that as well.
Okay, the next ad is 2 part-time crossing guards. Those positions will be assigned to the new Gaithersburg Elementary School, which is slated to open for the next school year. I don't think that's been named yet.
It is not, to my knowledge, it is not.
And then the next issue is kind of expanding the discussion a little bit, compensation.
Well,
and-
before we move on, and we already touched on it, and I thank the council president as well as the chief on the proposal that Councilmember Glass has talked about for the cadet expansion. Where does that fit in when we're going to? I mean, are we in agreement that that should happen? Where is that going to fit into this
They
discussion?
currently have 12, and please update me if I've got my numbers wrong. They currently have 12 cadets. They don't have dedicated staff. They have a mixture of staff that help run that program. And if they wanted to expand, I believe they'd need 1 corporal. I gave some options to Councilmember Glass as far as expanding it by another 10 or another 20. And there are different line items on your memo
Yep.
that are showing that cost. So if you wanted to ask the department what they envision as far as a cadet expansion program, how many they'd like to expand it to, we can work better to figure out an actual cost for you.
Are you prepared today, or are you? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think I would love to double the numbers that we have.
we'd love for you to.
Yes, I would love to double to have a goal of at least 24 to 25 cadets in our program, because again, understanding that everyone comes in at a different level. So, there's, for example, you'll have those that might be in a program, they're in the program for a year already. They only have 1 year to go. It's a 2-year program. And the goal is once they complete their college credits, they're ready to roll into our next academy class, and the transition is much easier. And then therefore you would have sort of a remaining number of cadets that are getting ready to transition to second year. But again, the more that we can hire on to be inclusive as we continuously move in the program, I'd really like to shoot for a goal of at least 25. I think that would be ideal for us.
So if it meets with my colleague's approval, which I believe it does, if we could add that in, how is that going to work for?
Right, so if you could recommend adding that to the reconciliation list,
Please.
I can develop costs with the department to get a precise number to cover 25 cadets total.
Okay, and though he is one of the millions watching at home, we thank Councilmember Glass for raising this issue, and we agree with him. Okay. Thanks.
Compensation and retention in general, and management retention in particular. The compensation is under the authority and purview of the Government Operations and Fiscal Planning Committee, and they did meet on the reviewed the proposed collective bargaining agreements last Thursday. At that time, Councilmember Katz, who's also a member of the GO, inquired about the feasibility of extending those proposed FOP raises to police management as well. I'm not going to get into, we're developing costs, Mr. Howard, Mr. Trumka, and I are developing costs of what that would look like. I just wanted to get into, provide a little context of why I think also that police management increases in salaries are important, both for recruitment and retention, and to deliver the best public safety services you can to the community. So police in the department are currently under 3 different salary schedules. There's the FOP salary schedule that covers police officer 1 through sergeant, then the police leadership service that covers lieutenants and captains, and the executive salary service, which covers the assistant chiefs and the chief. Under the recommended budget, the FOP's proposed CBA is outlined on page 13. It is up to a 13.5% increase for some of the police officers based on where they are on their steps. And that includes 2 different general wage adjustments, one in July, one in January. Everybody who's eligible for a service increment gets that increment, and that's 3.5%. The entire salary schedule is adjusted and another 3.5%. And they created a new longevity step at 15 years of service, which gives another 3.5%. So again, depending on where you are and your length of service, you could get up to a 13.5% increase. Additionally, field training officer pay differential increases from $3.50 an hour to $6 an hour. For police management, including lieutenants and captains in the PLS. The budget includes a $4,333 pass-through that is given to non-represented employees. And so while the FOP members will get almost all of their proposed increases at the beginning and the middle of the fiscal year, for lieutenants and captains, their GWA is scheduled for the end of the fiscal year, meaning practically speaking, FOP members, police officers, threes, and sergeants and corporals could get $8,000 to $11,000 for the year, which is absolutely necessary as far as retention is concerned and recruitment to make us, as Assistant Chief Frank said, more competitive in the region. But lieutenants and captains, when that $333 is only paid at the very end of the year, they effectively get $167 for FY23. The vast majority of that raise comes later in FY24. So there are already compression issues in the salary structure as it stands. There are different pay differentials. Sergeants, for example, get a 5% roll call differential. Captains who are commanders of district stations get a 10% differential. When these three different salary schedules push up against each other because they get different types of benefits, then you get further compression. It's my understanding there are some sergeants right now with the, identical lengths of service to some lieutenants, and they're out earning those lieutenants. And so that creates, when we've had this discussion before, it creates morale problems. It significantly creates retention problems. And I've got retention numbers on page 14 for police management. You currently have 38 lieutenants. You've lost 23 over the past 3 years. And of the 38 you still have, 20 are eligible to retire. You currently have 20 captains. They've lost 15 over the past 3 years. And of the 20 they have today, 16 are eligible to retire. You have 5 assistant chiefs, one of whom is civilian. You've lost 4 sworn assistant chiefs over the past 3 years, and all 4 sworn assistant chiefs are eligible to retire. And of course, the chief is eligible to retire. So it's important for a variety of reasons to maintain police management in the department. You need that historical and institutional knowledge. You need the expertise to be able to deal with the complex needs as far as police reform goes, as far as operations go. I mean, it was management who organized the police response to the January 6th insurrection. It is management that organized the SWAT response to Magruder High School. You need that type of expertise in place to navigate all of the changes that the profession is feeling right now and to ensure that they can provide the most optimal services to the community. So while we are working to determine costs for extending similar compensation increase to police management, I'm just recommending that the committee and the council take this under serious consideration moving forward to, again, ensure the most effective public safety services you can provide, because I know there's been some community conversation about reducing police. But honestly, the evidence research shows that police-based operations are the absolute best way to address violence in the short term. And I'm not talking about over-policing, I'm talking about good policing. But you do need police management to make sure that good policing is happening.
Please, Mr. Council President.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank the chairman for bringing this up in GO and 100% concur with the need for us to do this. And for context, virtually every previous administration had matched up the adjustments in compensation for both represented and non-represented employees. And while I understand this administration has taken a different course in this area specifically, I think for all the reasons that Ms. Farag mentioned, which I completely concur with, but I would add 2. One, as I look at the leadership here before us, you all have organically come up through the ranks in a number of respective ways. And having people who understand our community, who understand our department, who have relationships with corresponding agencies and community leaders is absolutely a best practice and something that I think needs to continue so that, we have future police chiefs, future assistant chiefs, lieutenants, captains that come from the ranks. And that is critically important. But the other issue, too, is I know fewer are applying for those leadership positions, just as we have fewer people applying for the profession, period. And that's a problem, because if the best and brightest are choosing not to go down this path because of the additional burdens, and they're doing a cost-benefit analysis socially, financially, and in every way imaginable, and if they're determining that it's just not worth it, then that's a problem too. And so I very much support this, and I think that I'd like to signal to my colleagues in the executive branch moving forward, and I've had conversations with the county executive, I'm sure other colleagues have as well, and I think there's a general agreement that this needs to happen. So, and I know it's going to cost a little bit more, but it's worth it. And so I do think this is a good step forward.
Thank you. And as you've heard me say probably many more times than you want to hear me say, I believe there's certain things that you can't afford not to do. And this is one of them. We're very proud of the fact that Montgomery County has provided police chiefs and police administrators across the United States. And we need to make certain that and we're very proud of the fact that they are doing this in a variety of places. But we need to make certain that the people who are here are compensated so that they will stay here if they wanted to stay here. And so I believe that that's something that is the right thing to do. And if you could please come up with those figures. The other thing that was raised at, and I know that Councilmember, I'm going to speak for Councilmember Hucker, and he said, I have a feeling if I'm wrong, he will more than just tell me. But I know he's in support of that as well. One of the other things that we discussed at government operations was the entire split for the health insurance. That each year we've gone to 80-20 was what's in the county executive's budget, and we go to 75-25, and it was pointed out, and if I'd heard it before, it never resonated with me until last week, but the reason that we have always come back with 75-25 is because it has never been collectively bargained to go to 75-25. It was 80-20, and I believe I'm going to get my history lesson right on this, and I think it was 2011. Perhaps you all, I know years run together for you all too, so I don't know whether you're going to know exactly what year. But it was one of the years that Montgomery County had run into terrible budgetary problems. You might remember some of this as well, Council President. And they realized at the time, it was before my time with Montgomery County, that we needed to go to 75-25 for the health insurance, and they did it. I mean, it was I guess an unspoken agreement, or whatever the right term is on that. We now when talk about retention and recruitment, if it's on the list that if you go to another county, you get better retirement, you get better starting salary, you get better, and one of them is, oh, by the way, you're going to pay more for health insurance. Why would you come here? Or you got enough things wrong on the list, or enough things tough on the list. If they offer you and another group offers you, we should also consider the health insurance. So I'm going to propose, and it was a 2-1 vote at the government operations. Council Chair Navarro and I were in agreement that we should go to the 80-20 health insurance split. I think it would be something else, and there again, it's going to be the larger discussion, Council President, at full council. But I think it's something that this committee should, I believe, be supportive of, and I believe it would be the right thing to do at a time when I guess there's so much on our list that there's things that you really, it's always difficult. Everybody says, well, you have this extra money, go ahead and do it. We don't have extra money, but if we don't provide the services that the public needs and demands, then we're going to have real problems. And as you can see, for our first responders, we're going to run into problems providing the services for them. So anyhow, it was more of a speech or a preaching than it needed to be, I guess. But is there agreement that we should also recommend the 80-20 split? And I don't know where it fits into this.
That might be better handled when you go to full council.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I certainly, and I will bring that up. I have a feeling, I'm warning the Council President, I'm bringing it up. Okay.
Okay, we have 2 operational issues. We actually already discussed the body-worn cameras, but there are also 90 mobile video cameras added to the budget. As you know, all patrol cars are required to have mobile video cameras, and these 90 cameras are replacements for Panasonic Interceptor models that are no longer supported by the vendor, and the department's moving to Axon. There's also a new item, pepper ball guns for $90,000. The recommended budget adds funding to purchase a less lethal protective instrument, which fire frangible projectiles. I really wanted to write that word in the packet, containing irritant powders similar to pepper spray. And these instruments have been evaluated by the department's Joint Health and Safety Committee. The department plans to purchase launchers that are similar to long guns. So the committee should understand the training needs of this instrument, the use of this instrument, and possibly the collective bargaining requirements of implementing the program.
Okay. And at one time, there was bean bags, there's always something that people are looking at. I mean, some of it is we see on, that somebody sees on television and figures maybe we should try it also. But obviously, this is something that we all want to have safety restored as quickly as possible in the most non-lethal way as possible. And if that's something that is being suggested by the department, I'm certainly supportive of it. Yes? Yes? Okay.
Okay. The next part, that concludes the budget, but I did want to bring some data analysis information to your attention as you move forward. You're about to get a huge data dump of a bunch of different demographic information and incident data that will be put on Data Montgomery and is reported out by the department as you just passed Bill, what was it, 4520? I can't remember the number, but it modified 3319 to include additional reporting requirements. And I just wanted to put this in context because data collection is essential to better understand both community needs as well as how police respond to those needs. I wanted to caution, however, that just benchmarking these racial disparities, the encounter data against census data is not going to be as specific as if you identify who the at-risk population is. And the reason I bring this to your attention is because just benchmarking against census data is a great place to start, but it also in itself it could be misleading. And if you want to get down to the types of policies that really affect change within the police department effectively based on what piece of a racial disparity might be caused by the police department itself, because there are a lot of external factors that play into that. It's not just the 100% police that contribute to the racial disparities in any of this encounter data. So the more precisely you can get to the at-risk population, the better you will know what types of policies to implement to change and make effective change that better serves the communities. So this could be a budget item for the police department if you would like to conduct, engage outside research consultant resources to help measure and assess this data as it comes in. It could be a council budget item, right, depending. But I just wanted to put it on your radar that I think it's necessary to really get a more sophisticated analysis to better target policy changes that impact the department. That's a cost savings. You don't want to put some change in place that doesn't really help. And I'll give you an example based on the equity emphasis areas. You have centralized traffic division now, and they sent out their 6 months of data, as far as what warnings and citations they were writing and how it impacted, safety on the roads. And they do an evidence-based approach to enforcing traffic, and that's based on crash data at intersections and arterial roadways, the ones that have high crash rates. They often fall in equity emphasis areas. So if you have focused policing in an equity emphasis area that is lower income, communities of color, people who don't necessarily speak English well, you're more likely to be pulling them over. So if you base this just on a census data benchmark and you see, oh, there's a high disparity from the centralized traffic enforcement, then you might think that you don't need this program, or this program is disproportionately harmful to communities of color, when in reality it's actually saving lives in those same communities of color. So that's why a better distinction of what the at-risk population is will be more helpful to policymakers going forward.
I agree with you. Council President, I'm certainly supportive of it to do it through the police department, but I do believe it's a bigger question as well. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I very much agree with the recommendation. I know that, as has been brought up in other contexts, the issue of independence and data collection is going to come up. And I think that, but we do need to absolutely have better information moving forward, because to Ms. Farag's point, census information is a good start, but it doesn't tell the whole story, and we need to be able to tell the whole story and understand it in order for us to be able to both propose but actually implement policies and not create more problems than we're trying to solve. So I I do think that I would suspect my colleagues on the council beyond just this committee will have strong opinions about this and feelings about it. So I think as a committee recommendation to discuss it in full council makes sense, but it would be more appropriate to have a conversation so that all of my colleagues have the same context.
Absolutely, and I just wanted to put it on your radar if it's something that you wanted to do much later in the year when the data actually is coming in. It's something that may require supplemental appropriation.
Yep, I'm open to that.
You good?
Just curious, have we received any recommendations from any members of the advocacy community about how they want to proceed on this data dump and the analysis?
I haven't seen any.
I haven't.
No. I can check and see
Nobody else?
in
Okay.
our IQ correspondence system, I haven't seen anything.
Right. Okay. I agree with everything that's been said. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify, you've recommended delaying the 12 positions at the ECC, exploring options for getting them a defined retirement benefit, also adopting a recommendation of Councilmember Glasses to expand the cadet program to 25 people, and recommend approving the rest of the budget as submitted.
Yeah, and I think I'm in agreement. What was the first thing you just said, please?
I believe it was reducing 12 telecommunicator positions for savings of approximately $500,000 because they're having difficulty just even filling their 42 vacancies.
We're saying that we should do parallel efforts, that we should, yes, that we should be looking to try to hire people and have the discussion.
absolutely,
Yeah, okay. I just want to be clear on that, yes. Are we all good with that? Good. Thank you very much. And next up is the Dr. Stoddard and, yes, go ahead, Chief.
We just want a point of clarification on the
Sure.
last item.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that we're clear.
Okay.
So, as you say that you wanted to parallel,
Mm-hmm.
does that mean are we looking to hire?
Yes.
In the meantime, as
Yeah.
we move forward, and
Yeah.
then just to go?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Are we clear on that? Are we okay on that?
I guess I would just also point out that that funding is for 6 months. So the idea would be to actually hire those positions in January, just as a point of clarification.
Well, and we always appreciate that, but as, you know, as we live in the bureaucracy, it takes forever to hire somebody. So if we could start the process sooner to get people so that in 6 months they will actually be there, I think that's also the necessary way to do it. Okay, thank you. All right, we good? So now we're going to move on to the Police Accountability Board, non-departmental account. And this, there again, and Ms. Frog and Ms. Wellens have prepared an excellent packet. We're going to welcome Dr. Stoddard, who's an assistant chief administrative officer. I never get his title correct. I'm sure he does at times. I'm sure he doesn't at times. And Mr. Morris as well, Tammin Morris of the OMB, Office of Management and Budget. I did want to point out, as was pointed out in this packet, the county must fund and staff the newly created Police Accountability Board and Administrative Charging Committee, and of course, we call them PAB and ACC. The initial funding was $100,510, but that provided no staffing. The executive's proposed budget amendment adds another $336,031 and 2 full-time equivalents, and the funding and staffing must be in place by July 1st, 2022 to meet the state mandate, which we are working very hard to make certain that we do meet the state mandate. And with that, any of my colleagues have any opening statements on this one? No? Dr. Stoddard, do you have any opening statements?
No, I just thank the members of the committee for having us. I'm very interested. Obviously, I would just note that we're going into this without a whole lot of knowledge about how this is actually going to work. So I would imagine that there is at least an opportunity for potential review later. I don't think there will be a need for a supplemental, but I think there will be a need for a review of this process by the end of this fiscal year to consider what the staffing really should be moving forward.
Sounds good. And with that, we will turn to you two ladies.
Yes, as you stated already, there was initial funding included about $100,000 as a placeholder. The executive's proposed budget amendment, which came over last Tuesday, I believe, adds $336,000 in 2 FTEs. And the 2 FTEs they're adding are an M2 position, a manager 2 position, as well as an administrative support position. And that's in line with what I was looking at. Both the Ethics Commission and the Merit System Protection Board have similar staffing. The fiscal impact is laid out on page 2. Oh, I just want to make sure you all had the revised packet. There's a revised staff report because the numbers have been updated. So it should say at the top right of your packet if it's revised or not. And I'm sorry about that. I should have brought them with me. So they lay out an itemized list of all the different salary, personnel costs, and operating costs on page 2, and that includes compensation for both the Police Accountability Board members as well as the Administrative Charging Committee. If there's an overlap of one member serving on both, that person will not be compensated as a Police Accountability Board person. I did have some concern about the manager salary that they are suggesting. At this point, the council staff is advising that the proposed salary here is $90,000 with benefits of approximately $24,000. For comparative purposes, the Ethics Commission is similarly staffed with an M2 and Administrative Specialist 3, and that executive director is at the maximum salary point for an M2, which is about $165,000 or so. That incumbent has held that position for many years, which is a difference, but for the Merit System Protection Board, which is also similarly staffed with an M2 and one support staff person, the executive secretary makes $127,000 part-time. So council staff is noting that the proposed salary here is only for 9 months. It reflects a 90-day hiring delay. I would suggest, if the committee wants to take this under consideration, starting that new director at least at midpoint on the salary scale, which would be $133,000 after the June 19th GWA, and that may be a more appropriate salary. This position is going to have a lot of responsibility. It's going to have to manage 2 different, a board and a charging committee, and provide the staff support, the guidance, and management of that. I think $133,000 is more appropriate for that position. I have a couple of outstanding questions. Also caution that the Administrative Charging Committee workload may increase in FY24 when the current FOP collective bargaining agreement expires and all sworn MCPD officers are subject to the new disciplinary scheme. And as you've already stated before, that we should come back and look and see how this is progressing to make sure that we have a clear understanding of what the actual workloads are and the complexities of that workload. The other thing, if they are going to have a 90-day hiring delay, it would be helpful to understand how the executive branch intends on providing staff support for the Police Accountability Board if it's up and running by July 1st.
Okay. I'm certainly supportive of the 133,000 or whatever that number was that you had suggested. I don't know, and my colleagues are good on that as well. And there again, as you stated earlier, Dr. Stoddard, that we are working diligently to get there, but we don't know exactly what that's going to be, et cetera. So how are you going to handle it in the meantime, trying to hire somebody and all of those important aspects?
Yeah, so I think, 90 days, I think we use that generally as a conservative perspective. The hire, I'm going to do the hiring directly. Obviously, the goal is to have this be operated totally independently. We want to make sure that it goes well. So we'll be bringing in additional staff, obviously not from the police department. We want to keep that autonomy from it, but we have, we have TEB staff coming on board to try and help with the portal and other issues there. So we think we can address it through a cobbling together and get the staff hired as quickly as possible to provide them the direct consolidated support as quickly as possible. So I think we can do it, but 90 days I think is extremely conservative. I think we'd like to move faster than that.
Okay. I feel for you on this one. I mean, I know you only work 24/7 now, so this could give you, a couple extra days a week to work on this. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, we realize how extremely important this board is and the committee associated with it, and we recognize that maintaining the transparency and having a functional system is really important to us. So we're going to commit the time and effort necessary to do it because it's just too important not to do.
Okay. I'm good with that.
So the total funding with the budget amendment that just came across the street is about $436,000. I had prior discussions with OMB last week that if you did choose to increase the manager 2 salary to $133,000, they can handle that within the existing budgeted resources. So it's not going to increase the bottom line here. But I just wanted to get committee's intent
No, I'm fine with
on
that.
record. Okay.
Thank you all for doing that for us. I'm fine with that. Are we okay?
Thank you.
Is there anything else on this topic? Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate all of your efforts on every topic. Thank you. And with that, we're adjourned.